Detroit Rock City. Four kids emulating rock stars who get a chance to step up and be a hero, and they do it. So, Detroit Rock City, released in 1999. It is what do we call it? A very specific type of comedy, teen comedy. You could even get into more specifics by calling it a road trip. Teens go on a road trip comedy. It's a subgenre that I'm sure most people are familiar with and have seen some type of this movie before, or at least are acquainted with the idea. Written by Carl V. Dupree, directed by Adam Rifkin. We got Edward Furlong, Giuseppe Andrews, James DeBello, and Sam Huntington starring here as the teens in question, the four misfits who are in a Kiss cover band. How do we describe this movie? I love this movie, first of all. It's a 70s soaked road trip romp, is what it is. And not just with music, but just like so many familiar cultural tropes that just fit a lot of 70s Americana culture into the movie. But it doesn't feel hokey to me. I mean, there's a certain amount of tongue-in-cheek that this movie brings to the table, and is very self-aware, and everything just in there it feels natural and good and fun. It is lowbrow. It is blue. It is fun, though. If you are into those things, then I think you will have a good time in this movie. If you can appreciate the 70s, then you'll have an even better time, and especially music from the 70s. So no spoilers in this one, but basically what we have are these band of misfits, these four friends who are in a Kiss cover band called Mystery, and they have tried to go and see Kiss before, and things just always happen when they try to go see Kiss, and this is their third year in a row trying to get Kiss tickets to go and see their idols play live, specifically in Detroit, and antics ensue. Adventures happen, and it's really fun. I'm not a huge fan of the teen road trip comedy genre. I think it had its time and place for a bit, 90s, early 2000s, etc. But I don't know. I mean, I guess there were ones before that, right? But I mean, like, things kind of really blew up around then, I feel, and it got oversaturated and too silly for me, and just, I don't know. It just wasn't really for me, at least with the ones that I've seen, which are mostly coming out of that era. You know, like, I was a teenager in the early 2000s, the late 90s, early 2000s. So that's what I saw a lot of, and it wasn't really for me. But this one is for me. I saw it maybe, I don't know how many years after it was released. I feel like I saw it in high school, but I don't know when exactly. So a couple years after it was released at some point. I enjoy the idea of Kiss. I like a lot of Kiss's music. Actually, that's not true. I don't know what percentage to give it. Maybe it's only 10% of Kiss's catalog. But that 10% I really, 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 really like. I love that 10%. The rest of it, I can't listen to. But there's a big handful, two handfuls of songs, because they have an extensive catalog. But there's like two handfuls of songs that are just magnificent, and I love them dearly. So I get a lot out of this movie that has nothing to do with the teen comedy on a road trip, like that kind of stuff. It's like the 70s culture, Kiss in their, I would say, peak years. At least the albums that I love most are those late 70s albums, and some other ones after that. But I mean, the late 70s ones are more my vibe, more my style. And so I get a lot out of this movie because I also don't mind lowbrow humor, and I'm okay with it. And when it's done right, and I will tell you why it's done right here in a minute. But if you also just like 70s American culture or North American 70s culture, I think you'd get a lot out of this. The soundtrack is phenomenal in this movie. So much more than just Kiss stuff. Like, there's a lot of just great songs here. So, yeah, hats off to, I forget the person who was looking after the music in this thing. Gene Simmons assists in producing, and that's kind of evident in some things here. But it doesn't ruin it whatsoever. It may strengthen it because it just doesn't go too overboard, and everything still comes off as natural and good and wonderful. We got Shannon Tweed in there for a little bit. Gene himself does not make an appearance other than on stage along with the rest of the members of Kiss. That is one thing I really love about this movie, is that we don't have like weird cameos with them. They're just strictly just there on stage, and that is it. That's it. So that's really nice as well. If you're a Kiss fan or a 70s fan, a fan of 70s rock, hair metal, whatever, and you're into lowbrow comedy, then this is essential. I would say essential for you. It's not an important movie by any means, but it would be essential for you to watch. I don't know how to summarize this movie any more than I just have, other than I feel the need to say the thing that makes this good, rather than just like these low-hanging fruit jokes and stuff that I can find them funny. I can. But there's a time and a place and things that have to be done right. And one of the things that's done right about this movie that makes me really appreciate it, even though it falls into this category of movies I'm generally not that interested in, with the teen road trip comedy, lowbrow, blue humor. Again, there's a time and a place for that stuff. If you watch the review on FUBAR, that was also done just like so right for me as a mockumentary style, and the second one not so much, but that falls into the same category as this in a way, except this movie, Detroit Rock City, with these 4 hooligans starring in this thing, it's just done so right because there's so much of like that after school special like learning moment, kind of like everyone learns a lesson, but it's not a hokey, cheesy lesson. I feel like there are lessons learned here, especially with one of the characters, there's so much about the self that they learn. They really learn about themselves going through these challenges, because the one thing that this thing does so well is that despite the fact that they are a group and they are going through challenges as a group, they also have a period of time where they are alone, and they have to conquer these challenges alone, and it's obviously very reflective of life, and that you're not going to have your best friend by your side at all times, conquering challenges and laughing and spitting in the face of evildoers who are against you. But you're going to be alone, and it's going to be scary. And some of the challenges they meet are just regular, ordinary challenges. I really identified a lot with one of the characters in this movie when I was growing up, and I was like, man, I wish I could do that. Like, and it's something that I had an opportunity to do, right? Like, there was opportunity to do that. Some of these things, these challenges that they're facing, some of them, and the most powerful ones, I feel, are the ones that everybody goes through. They're very relatable, some of them, and some not so relatable. But nonetheless, I think that they do such a good job of presenting these very real moments. Sometimes they're set in a fantastical situation that you would never be in, but the core of it is the same. Whether it could be just someone conquering their inner shyness, or trying to stand up to somebody, trying to find their own voice, like things like that. And they all just have this inner dialogue going on of how am I going to beat this? How am I going to get through this? And it's just done so well. I feel romantic about this movie to a degree. It's not like a warm, fuzzy movie generally, but there are warm and fuzzy moments, just not in a traditional sense. I just feel like what they did here is they got that stuff in there, this important stuff, that you can learn from and you can be inspired from, which is so weird when you see the movie. Like, for me to say that, because on its surface, it's just so very much like, hey, it's a teen road trip comedy just set in the 70s with fans of Kiss, and the soundtrack is like all 70s rock and stuff, right? So, but we do have these very important moments that I think most people can definitely latch onto, and that's what I mean by them doing it right. Yeah, there's expect some comedy that may not play well today because we are more mature and we understand things better and maybe are more empathetic and have more exposure to certain groups of people. But here, there are some of those jokes that you would find in the late 90s. There's going to be a little misogyny, a little sexism, a little... I mean, things, when I say that, I mean just being like, calling boys girls just to be demeaning, whether it be a teacher doing that or another classmate being like, hey girls, what are you doing, when it's really just a bunch of dudes, things like that. There are some unfortunate circumstances where there's a homophobic joke or two just by like someone being like, I'm not gay. The other thing is that this is set in the 70s, so not only is it unfortunate that the late 90s we still have these attitudes, but this is also set in the 70s on top of that. I think it is very authentic. I was not alive in the 70s, but I feel like this is this pumped up version of the 70s, and I've always said, if I were to be in any era, if I were to be a teenager or late teens, early 20s in any era, it would be in the late 70s. Mainly for the music and culture and things that are happening. I would love to be a part of that. And so I get to fulfill that fantasy by proxy through this movie. Where is it on my shelf? I feel like I've got to have a separate shelf. It's high on my shelf. It's not an important movie, but it is essential and important to you if you are a Kiss fan who can stomach lowbrow comedy or who enjoys lowbrow comedy. If you can tolerate it even, if you are a Kiss fan. I don't think you need to be a Kiss fan to enjoy this. I really don't. There's a couple little inside jokes here and there that you can get more out of it if you know Kiss and their music and stuff, but you don't need to be a Kiss fan to enjoy this movie or learn the lessons that they learn. Yeah, it's definitely high on my shelf. I have very few comedies that are high on my shelf, let alone top shelf. Very, very few. Especially ones that are lowbrow. Like, there's other ones I'm like, man, like Superbad is like, that is, I don't know if it'll ever reach my top shelf ever. But if I'm just talking about comedies, this is probably close to top shelf on just the comedy scale, let alone just, yeah, for me. But again, that genre is just something that doesn't appeal to me a lot. But you learn something here. It's great. Music is fantastic. And it's just so much fun. It's a lot of fun. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's self-aware. I don't feel it's hokey. I feel it's authentic and wonderful. And if you're into those things, you should watch it. Detroit Rock City.